All right, so are you ready? Let's dive into The Cabin in the Woods.
Ooh, yeah, Cabin in the Woods.
This one, I know you guys requested this one, so it's clearly got something, it's clearly got you thinking.
Definitely a popular request.
Yeah, and we're not just talking jump scares here, folks. We're gonna
Uh-oh.
we're gonna go deeper, right? We've got excerpts, we've got analysis, we even got some behind the scenes stuff to really uncover what makes this movie tick.
I love it.
So buckle up.
Yeah, we're going way beyond good movie, bad movie.
Right.
This deep dive is about understanding why Cabin in the Woods is considered a meta-horror masterpiece, how it breaks the mold, and maybe even what it says about us as horror fans.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyone who hasn't seen it, quick spoiler-free rundown. 5 college friends
Classy.
head to a remote cabin. Think your typical horror movie setup, right? We've got the jock, the brainy one, the party girl.
The Verge.
You know the drill.
Yeah, you know the drill.
Yeah, they lean into those classic archetypes almost to the point of parody.
That's right.
But there's a reason for that. There's a deliberate choice that sets up this whole meta commentary thing.
Absolutely.
Because as we quickly learn, things are not what they seem.
Things are not what they seem.
This cabin is ground zero for something much bigger, much weirder.
Right, and the film brilliantly deconstructs those familiar tropes.
Yes.
It's not just using them, it's dissecting them, showing us how predictable horror can become.
Totally.
And maybe even poking fun at our expectations as viewers.
Yeah. You know that feeling like when you're watching a horror movie and you can practically like sense the jump scare coming? Cabin in the Woods turns that feeling on its head.
It knows you know.
It does.
It knows you know. And that's the beauty of it.
It's self-aware.
The film constantly plays with those expectations.
Yeah.
Sometimes fulfilling them,
Yeah.
sometimes subverting them entirely. And that's where the meta comes in.
Right.
It's not just a horror film.
And it's a film about horror films.
It's a film about horror films.
It's like the movie is winking at us saying, we know you think you know what's going to happen, but we're going to take you for a ride.
Oh, I love that.
And that ride takes us behind the scenes, revealing this shadowy organization,
Right.
manipulating the events at the cabin.
Those poor kids.
Right. They're controlling everything from the monsters to
Yeah,
the
so-
characters' decision.
Yeah.
It's like they're the ultimate puppet masters of horror.
Mm-hmm.
And what's even crazier is they're doing it all for a purpose, to appease these ancient gods.
Right. And now those gods aren't just some random plot device.
Right.
They represent something deeper, something that gets to the heart of what the film is really about.
Yeah, they represent us, the audience, right? Like our insatiable hunger for horror,
Yes.
for violence, for that adrenaline rush that comes from being scared out of our wits.
I love it. It's a bold statement and a little unsettling when you think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
I just-
Are we, the viewers, complicit in this cycle of horror?
Mm.
Do we, by craving these stories, perpetuate the very tropes that the film is deconstructing?
It makes you think about the nature of entertainment.
It does.
Like, why are we drawn to these dark stories? What is it about fear that captivates us so?
That's a question that philosophers and psychologists have been grappling with for centuries. And Cabin in the Woods adds its own unique perspective to the conversation.
Okay, now let's talk about those monsters, because when those basement doors swing open,
Oh, yeah?
it's not just a bunch of random creatures popping out.
It's not random at all.
Each one is a carefully chosen symbol representing different subgenres of horror.
Right.
You've got your classic zombies, your werewolves, your creepy crawlies.
Creepy crawlies.
But you've also got these more obscure creatures like the Sugar Plum Fairy, the Hell Lord.
Yeah.
It's like the filmmakers rated a horror movie encyclopedia and threw everything in there.
The whole shebang.
But they're not just there for shock value, right? Each monster serves a purpose.
Each monster serves a purpose reflecting the vast and varied landscape of horror.
I like that, the vast and varied.
Yeah.
Okay, so take the Hell Lord, for example. He's not just some scary demon.
Right.
He embodies our anxieties about religious extremism, about the dangers of blind faith and fanaticism.
Oh, that's a great point.
And the creepy ballerina, she's not just there to give us the creeps.
Right.
She embodies the societal pressures and expectations placed upon women, the way they're often objectified and reduced to their physical appearance.
Really good point.
So we're not just watching a monster movie, we're watching a commentary on society.
I like that.
On our fears, on the things that keep us up at night.
It's like the film is saying, look, horror isn't just about blood and guts. It's a reflection of who we are, what we fear, and what we desire.
I like that. That's a good quote.
Yeah.
It is?
And by understanding the symbolism,
Mm-hmm.
we can gain a deeper appreciation for the film's brilliance and its lasting impact on the genre.
Right. And let's be honest, those monsters are just plain cool, right? I mean,
Come on, who doesn't love a good werewolf?
exactly. But even the less familiar creatures, the ones that make you go, what the? They stick with you.
They do.
They make you question what's truly terrifying, what lurks in the shadows of our collective consciousness.
And that's where Cabin in the Woods really shines. It's not afraid to be weird, to be unsettling,
Yeah.
to push the boundaries of what we expect from a horror film. And by doing so, it elevates the genre,
It does.
making us think about horror in a whole new way.
It's not just about being scared, it's about understanding why we're scared,
Right?
what those fears say about us, and how we can use horror to explore those darker aspects of ourselves and the world around us.
And that's why, even though it came out a while back, Cabin in the Woods still feels fresh, relevant, and thought-provoking.
It does.
It really does.
But there's a lot more to unpack here. We've barely scratched the surface of what makes this film tick.
That's right. We've got to talk about that ending, the choices the characters make,
Yeah.
and the film's lasting legacy.
So get ready to go even deeper into the woods. We'll be back in a flash to continue this deep dive.
Oh, I love it. Okay, welcome back to our deep dive into Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
We've talked about the film's clever use of those horror tropes and those symbolic monsters.
Right.
But what really gets me is how the whole movie is like a giant puzzle box with layers of meaning
Right.
that you can keep unpacking.
Yeah. And speaking of unpacking,
Yeah.
let's revisit those ancient ones.
Yes, the ancient ones.
We touched on how they represent the audience's craving for horror,
Right.
but I'm curious, how does that tie into the film's overall message?
Yeah, what's fascinating is that the film doesn't just point fingers at the audience and say, you like violence. Shame on you.
Right.
It actually uses those ancient ones to spark a conversation about why we as a society are so drawn to these dark, disturbing narratives.
It's like the movie is saying, hey, we all have this primal part of us that gets a thrill from fear, and maybe that's okay.
It's okay.
But let's be aware of it. Let's examine it.
Exactly, and the film doesn't shy away from showing the consequences of that primal urge.
Right.
The entire world is at stake because of these ancient beings and their demands.
Yeah, it makes you think about how we consume horror
It does.
and what that says about us. Are we just looking for cheap thrills, or is there something deeper going on?
I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Horror can be a way to confront our fears in a safe environment. It can be cathartic,
Okay.
even empowering.
Yeah.
But Cabin in the Woods suggests that there's also a darker side to that fascination,
Right.
a potential for desensitization,
Oh.
and even a perverse pleasure in watching others suffer.
Yeah, and the film doesn't let the filmmakers off the hook either.
No, they're all in this together.
Those technicians controlling the mayhem, they're just as complicit in this whole twisted game.
Absolutely. They represent the cynical side of the entertainment industry,
Okay.
the part that's more concerned with profits and ratings than with the artistic integrity or the potential impact of their work.
That whole betting pool scene
Oh, my God.
is just brilliant. It's like a direct commentary on how we, the audience, become obsessed with body counts and gruesome death scenes.
It's so true.
Right.
The film forces us to ask ourselves,
Yeah.
are we part of the problem? Are we demanding this kind of violence from our entertainment? It's a question that resonates even more strongly today
Oh, yeah.
with the rise of extreme horror
Mm-hmm.
and the constant push for more shocking content.
You know, one thing that really struck me about Cabin in the Woods is how it uses humor
Yeah.
to address these really dark, complex themes.
That's what makes the film so clever.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just a grim, nihilistic take on the horror genre.
Right.
It's also incredibly funny.
It is.
The dialogue is sharp,
Mm-hmm.
the characters are quirky,
Yes.
and there are moments of pure absurdity that lighten the mood without undermining the film's message.
Like that scene where Marty finds the bong hidden in the basement.
Oh, yes!
Such a ridiculous moment.
So good.
But it also highlights the absurdity of the whole situation.
Right, it's a reminder that even amidst the horror,
Yeah.
even when the stakes are incredibly high,
Mm-hmm.
there's still room for laughter, for a bit of comic relief.
Right.
And that balance between humor and horror
Mm-hmm.
is what makes the film so engaging and rewatchable.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about that ending.
Oh, yes, the ending.
I mean, it's not your typical horror movie climax.
It's not.
Usually the heroes save the day, right? But in Cabin in the Woods, they choose to let the world burn.
Yeah, that choice is what elevates the film from a clever deconstruction to a truly subversive work of art.
It is.
It's a rejection of the traditional horror narrative.
Right.
A refusal to play by the rules.
It's like they're saying, we're not going to be pawns in your game anymore.
Right.
If the only way to break the cycle is to destroy everything, then so be it.
Right.
That decision has sparked endless debates among fans
Yeah.
critics.
No.
Are Dana and Marty heroes? Are they villains?
Right.
Are they just victims of circumstance?
It's so interesting how their choice mirrors the dilemma faced by horror filmmakers themselves.
Oh, how so?
Do they give the audience what they want, even if it means perpetuating harmful tropes? Or do they try to break the mold, even if it means risking commercial failure
Yeah.
or alienating their fan base?
Right, big questions.
Cabin in the Woods doesn't provide easy answers.
No.
It leaves us with more questions than answers.
It does.
And that's part of its brilliance.
It's a film that stays with you long after the credits roll.
It does.
Making you think about the nature of horror, the role of the audience, and the choices we make both as consumers of entertainment and as individuals navigating a complex and often terrifying world.
And that's what sets this film apart.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just entertainment.
Right.
It's a challenge, a provocation, a mirror held up to our own darkest desires and deepest fears.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to examine. The film's lasting legacy,
Yes.
Cabin in the Woods, didn't just deconstruct horror.
Right.
It helped shape the future of the genre.
Absolutely. Its influence can be seen in countless films that have come out since, films that embrace meta-narrative,
Yeah.
subvert expectations, and challenge the boundaries of what horror can be.
So buckle up, because we're about to explore the film's impact on the evolution of horror cinema and how it continues to inspire filmmakers and audiences alike. Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into The Cabin in the
What
Woods.
happened in the woods?
We've explored the themes, the symbolism,
Yes.
even its critique of horror filmmakers and fans. But Cabin in the Woods didn't just deconstruct the genre, right? It offered this glimpse
Yeah.
of what horror could become.
It showed us the possibilities.
It did.
That's right. It's like the film threw down a gauntlet, challenging filmmakers to be more creative, more self-aware, and to engage with the audience on a deeper level.
And it worked. Cabin in the Woods had a huge impact
Absolutely.
on the horror landscape. We can see its DNA in so many films.
That followed. Think about a movie like It Follows.
That follows so good.
Where the monster is this relentless, unstoppable force, right? Representing that inescapable dread of growing up and facing adult responsibilities. And that film uses this simple but effective premise to explore these profound themes about sexuality, mortality, and the anxieties of modern life.
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
That slow burn tension, the way it follows, plays with our expectations and uses atmosphere to create dread. It's definitely got Cabin in the Woods vibe.
It totally does.
Right.
Absolutely. And then there's the Babadook,
The Babadook.
which uses the monster as a metaphor for grief
Okay.
and the way it can consume us.
Wow.
The film's disturbing imagery and psychological depth, I think, owes a lot to Cabin in the Woods' exploration of the darker corners of the human psyche.
It's not just about copying those specific monsters or plot points,
Right, right.
It's about that willingness to dig beneath the surface,
Yes.
to use horror as a lens to examine real-world fears and anxieties.
Exactly. Cabin in the Woods opened up the possibilities of what horror could be. It showed that you could have scares, gore, and all the classic elements, but you could also have intelligent commentary, social satire, even a touch of absurdist humor.
Right.
And it inspired a wave of filmmakers to embrace that approach, to create horror films that are both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Yeah, and it's almost like Cabin in the Woods gave permission for the genre to grow up, to mature,
Totally.
without losing its edge.
Absolutely.
So what does this all mean for us, the horror fans? What should we take away from this deep dive?
I think the key takeaway is to be more aware, more critical, more engaged with the horror we consume.
Okay.
Don't just passively absorb the scares. Think about what's behind them, what the filmmakers are trying to say,
Right.
how the film was playing with your expectations.
Ask yourself, why am I scared?
You know, what does this monster represent? What does this film say about our culture, our anxieties, our deepest fears?
Because horror at its best can be more than just entertainment. It can be a reflection of who we are, a
Yes.
way to explore the dark side of the human experience, and a powerful tool for social commentary.
And Cabin in the Woods is a shining example of that.
It is.
It's a film that entertains, scares, and makes you think
It does.
all at the same time. And that's a pretty impressive feat.
That is.
It's a film that reminds us that horror can be smart, funny, and deeply unsettling all at once.
Yes, it can.
And I love that.
So, the next time you're watching a horror movie, remember the lessons of Cabin in the Woods.
Yes.
Pay attention to the tropes, the symbolism, the way the film plays with your expectations, because you might just discover a whole new level of appreciation for this complex and endlessly fascinating genre. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and remember, the best horror stays with you long after the lights come up.